everybody. Welcome to SharePoint Power Hour. I'm Laura Rogers, and I have Joelle Jobson here on audio.
Hello.
And this is our weekly show that we've been doing for years and years and years and years. So Wednesdays at 11 Central, and it's called SharePoint Power Hour, but it's everything around SharePoint, related to SharePoint. Pretty much mostly SharePoint Online is what we talk about, and all the related technologies, Office 365, PowerApps, of course, and Flow. And today's topic is going to be PowerApps form logic. I actually sent out a poll in the newsletter that I sent out this morning, and because I had a few things and ideas that I was kicking around and things people have suggested that. So the overwhelming winner, it had over twice as many votes as all the other options, was PowerApps form logic. So that's what we'll be doing. And the fun thing about Power Hour is that it's live, and you never know what's going to happen. This is very informal training. So the slides that I'm going to be showing you are an expert from our actual real Power Apps formal training class that goes through all of Power Apps. But so this is just informal training that's just showing you kind of one little snippet of information. So if you were taking the whole class, you would have already learned about how to work with controls in Power Apps, what functions are, what galleries are, and what forms are, and how to use functions and how to do data connections. And you would have already learned all that stuff. So with Power Hour, though, I'm just jumping into one specific thing, and it's just the form logic. So it is definitely not formal training. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do a few slides, and we'll chat about a few concepts. And we have this Slack channel where you all can ask questions as we go and give your commentary, and that's the fun part. Hey, everybody. And I'll go ahead and just do a few slides and just alternate between slides and demos. So I will share my desktop. Okay, so we have this concept of a form control in Power Apps. When you are customizing a list form, just a SharePoint list form with Power Apps, this is what you get. So what you get is a pre-built Power App with just a form control in it. So if you are customizing a list form with Power Apps, you didn't have to click the insert button and click to insert a form control. It's already there. But that is just a control in Power Apps. So I usually choose edit when I'm in as the mode when I'm inserting a form control. Pretty much the display one is useless, because for an edit one you can make it just do a display only if you wanted to anyway. So once you add your form control, you pick your data source and which cards to display. So just a quick level set on what cards are before we get into the logic around cards. So all these fields from your SharePoint list are cards on your form and you can see here's a list of my fields from SharePoint. And when I drop the form control in my Power App, I can choose to snap to columns or not. I can choose how many columns to show in my form. And if I don't snap the columns, I can just drag the cards around and kind of change their widths and things and get them like I like them on the page. So each card is a field in my data source. You drag them to rearrange them, and it has a few settings like your layout and snap to columns. So before I do a demo, I'll go ahead and go into some more of these details. Now, these are really useful for form logic, specifically the required control property on a card, the display mode, and visible. Those are the three most useful properties on the card to doing the most common things that we usually do in forms when we want to do extra logic, like hiding and showing things according to certain conditions, or making some things read only according to certain conditions or editable. And then also making things required only under certain conditions. You also have, just inside of a card, you have all these little controls that exist out of the box that I usually don't mess with them. I usually leave them all there and don't try and change them, especially the star visible and the error message. But when you expand out each card, when you're in the little tree view, you'll be able to see all these inside of there. And so this is my form. This is my screen is the main parent. And then my form control is a child of the screen, because my form is on this particular screen called Screen New Project. And then inside of my form control, so you have this parent-child thing, you have all these cards that are the children of the form control. So, and this matters when you're doing settings where you're making controls reference other controls. Like I could say I want the width of a card to equal the parent width. And that way, no matter what the width of the form is, it would always fill up the whole width of the form. And then you'll see that you have these controls inside the card. You'll also notice some built-in settings with some of these controls. Like, for example, the data card value is this actual text box. Over here, you see hours used. That's the text box. They all come with these generic names. But it is going to have a width automatically of parent width minus 60. And that's, say, whatever the width of the card is, that width of that text box is just going to be, that minus 60. So we'll always have a little 30 pixels on each side. So it kind of stays along with the size of that card. So once you start messing with the widths and the heights and everything relative to other things and trying to get extremely granular, that's when you start really losing hours of your life. And just like this, same thing would happen with InfoPath. If you wanted to spend, do you remember those days, Joelle? You could spend hours in InfoPath just getting every little pixel just right and lined up.
Oh, hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yes. So
just making it perfect.
Yeah. So the more particular you're going to be about how you want it to look, the more time it's going to take, and then you just get immersed in it, and time travel. Okay. So when you're interacting with a form, just to start using the form control, you have to send this command to fill out a new form. If I want to edit an existing form, I have to send an edit form command, and I want to view an existing form. You can see I've just got kind of all these little different buttons that I'm using. Then I have to use the view form command. All these cases, I'm just pretty much just navigating and doing the form command at the same time. So these two, it doesn't really matter which order you do them in, but I'm doing a new form, edit form, and view form. Okay, so form functions and modes. This tells the form what mode it's in. New is a brand new form. Edit, you're editing an existing one. And the mode is view, you're reading an existing form. So that is all your cards on your form are automatically going to have whatever mode that the whole form is in by default. Then you have a display mode. This is not the same thing as the form mode. It's kind of confusing. So for example, in this example, my form is called Form Edit Customer. If I send a new form command, I'm editing the form. If I send an edit form command, I'm also editing the form, and view form, I'm viewing it. So the display mode is just visually, do you see all of your text boxes as just flat read-only things you can't click in, or are you actually editing them? And there's another one called disabled we'll talk about. So this is why the reason I kind of started high level kind of talking about the form mode is because that matters in logic with your card display modes. So like I said, the default display mode is going to be inherited from the parent, but you can unlock a card to change its display mode. So notice in this example, I just selected this one card, and I can see the display mode it's grayed out. I can't change it. So I'd have to go over here to advanced and unlock the card, and then I can change the display mode to something else. So if I want this, like this project start, I want it to be read only, I can just type the view only display mode here. So then it would have a different display mode than all of the other cards that in that form. So this is what they visually look like, what the controls look like when you're in these different modes. So this is a date picker. If I'm in my edit view mode, display mode, then I have, it looks like this, where I can click on the date picker and pick a date. If I'm in view, it's read only. Notice I can just see the date, I can't edit it. And then this disabled mode is specifically makes it look grayed out. Like I can still see the date picker, but it's obvious that it's not something I can click on. So this is a disabled control. Okay, so here's where we get into where you can change the display mode. So this status, maybe I want to have a status in my form that I don't want people editing, I just want them to be able to see it. Then I made my display mode just for that one card, I made it display mode.view. Then this is where the logic comes in. So it took me like, what, 12 minutes to get to the logic. This is the main gist of this presentation. That's why I kind of went fast through the other ones, is the logic part. So if the display mode, if the forms mode equals new, then I want the display mode to be view. I'm just reading it. Otherwise, if it's not new, I want it to be editable. So this is, you're going to be using these if commands in a lot of these places. So the display mode is the property that I'm in. I selected the whole card. Display mode is the property of the card. And then if it's a new form, you're just viewing the status. Otherwise, you're editing it. Let's see. Got to pay attention to Slack. I guess Joelle just like shouted out because I got PowerPoint's taking up my whole screen. So I guess shout it out if somebody has a question in Power Hour. A lot of people in Power Hour have been to my training class already, so I don't want to do too much repetitive. Let's see. And then we've got...
Looks like one just popped up.
Oh, okay. How do you make the date picker have the ability of typing the date instead of selecting it and clicking OK? Oh, that is a pain. I know what you mean. You would kind of have to not use the date picker to be able to accomplish something like that. You'd have to just do something completely custom, like create your own date picker and using little rectangles. Like there isn't just an option to make it easier to work with. Yeah, I agree that it is kind of a pain the way it works, but I mean, you could just do a text box, but then it wouldn't actually verify that they, I guess they would get a validation error if they tried to type it wrong into a date field. But potentially you could use just a text box for somebody to type a date in there. I haven't tried that though. Good question. Okay, let's see. So some more logic on the display mode. The customer status is disabled if the current user is not a manager. So again, this is the whole card. This is the display mode. Now the reason, just the logic that I use just in this example of how to determine if someone is a manager or not, is just if they have any direct reports. So this is using the data connection called Office 365 users, and it's looking, it says if is empty, direct reports of the current user. So if it's empty, then they don't have any direct reports, so they're not a manager. So if they're not a manager, the display mode is disabled. Otherwise, the display mode is edit. Okay, so just a minute ago, I was showing you how to do logic on the display mode. Now we're talking about the visible property. Every single control in PowerApps has a visible property. It's very powerful. What you can do, it really just requires writing an if statement. This is the same logic you use in Excel for if statements. In this case, the goal is the hours used field should only show if the project status is complete. So if this drop down project status dot selected value equals complete, true, it is showing. Otherwise, false. It will be invisible. So here's a little animation. So I'm changing the project status to complete and hours used shows. Then I change it to active and it disappears. Then as soon as I change it to complete, it shows again. So it's just based on what I'm picking in that drop-down box. So here's just to kind of cover, there are several different methods of doing logic to determine what a value is in another field in PowerApps. One way to know what the data is of the current field you're on is if you got to that form by clicking on something in a gallery, so on existing items, and then you'd know the gallery name dot selected dot something. That's one way, but that won't work on new items because to create a new item, you didn't select anything in gallery. So that's not really a good way to do it. Then you have current item in a form. So I could say, what's the value of just the current data? Like this item, what's the data? That won't work dynamically. We want this to work. We want to be changing the project status, and as soon as the status changes, we want things to hide and show. We don't want to have to wait till we hit save, right? So that is not really the best way to do it. So this star is supposed to be on this one down here. The field value in a control is the most reliable and dynamic. So that is this, I gave this little drop down project status a name, drop project status. So I'm pointing to that exact drop down and I'm saying if the selected value equals complete, then visible is true, otherwise false. Yeah, Zach, you're totally right. To create a training manual letting them know how to fill out fields. Put a little description, like a little text box right next to the field, letting them know. All right, so now another property that we have on a card is called required, and it just needs to be true or false. Now, by default, all of your, with a customized SharePoint list or SharePoint data and PowerApps by default is going to get the required information from the data in the list settings from those items and whether those fields are required. But if you wanted to purely set your logic based on other things going on in the form, and you don't want certain things to be required all the time, you could just make them not required in SharePoint and only just use logic in PowerApps to make it required or not. And when you make something required, when required is true, it automatically, that little star visible will automatically appear when required is equal to true. So one simple thing you can do is to just go to the required property and just type the word true and just make it true, and that one field will be required. But you can use for this logic that we're talking about, just like the display mode, just like the visible, you can use an if statement in the required field. So if the estimated cost is greater than 5,000, the manager field is required. So I go to the manager card, and in the required property, I type if blah, 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 the value of this text box is greater than 5,000, true, it's required, otherwise false. So whatever your if statement is that you put in required, it just has to evaluate to true or false. All I really have to type in here is, so we're at the beginning of the word value here, value of text and cost is greater than 5,000. That's really all I have to type, is this one little small part starting with value and ending in 5,000, because that alone, that statement will evaluate to true or false. So that's just a little bit more efficient way of doing that. Okay, so let's see what other, let me see, I'm probably not going to do, I'm not going to do any more slides. So here on out, we're just going to be demoing this stuff. Okay, hit my I created this generic request form in SharePoint, and I'll just add an item to it, test request. And it is just, the whole point of this is just to have, we don't need to have some specific type of request, travel request, product request, project request, just whatever it is. Just think of just any kind of old request that you have. That's what this is supposed to represent. And that's what we're doing. So I'm just going to kind of fill out some fields and save, just so I'll have one item in here just for fun. So now I have this request form, and I'm not doing a customized list form. I just created a blank, just standalone app from scratch. So you can see, I want you to be able to just see me do all this from scratch. So just on my screen, I'm inserting a form. I always choose edit here, because you could always send a view form command to something if you needed to, if you wanted it to be read-only. And I like to, first of all, I've got to pick a data source. I don't have any data sources yet. This is a brand new, from scratch, blank, standalone app. So I'm going to pick SharePoint. And I'm going to pick from that site that I'm on all my little test list here. And this one's called request form. And now to pick my data source, it just plopped a bunch of fields on my form control. And I could make this look kind of nicer if I want to. Let's see. My pet peeve with some of these themes is that the font usually kind of goes out of whack sometimes when you use those. Is that good enough? I'm trying to think of something that's good contrast for this presentation. Let me see. Maybe the purple one. That's a little better. Okay. This is my form control, and we're talking about logic. So first of all, I have to put a new form button on it just so that when I preview it, that something happens, because when I try to preview it like this, since I haven't sent a new form command to it, it's not going to do anything. So at least need to have a button here to fill out a new form. Not new. On select, new form. And I haven't given this form a nice name, have I? Let's see. I'll call it FRM request. It's my generic request form. Terry says required in PowerApps is not also required in SharePoint. Yes. So look, notice the title field here. I'll go click to create a new form. Notice my title field, that is required when I go to my list settings. See? That's the only required field. So I automatically get this little asterisk next to it. But if I go now, after I've already customized my form with PowerApps, now if I go to my list settings and I change something to required, this PowerApp form control is not going to know that. So then I would have to go back manually and say, if I change maybe priority to required, then I would have to know to go in here and go to my priority card and go to required and unlock my card and change it to true and make it required. So that is an extra step, that because you don't want to change something to required in SharePoint and you still have people filling out this form and then they get this error saying that they didn't fill in a required field, and they don't know that it's required because it doesn't have an asterisk next to it, and then you'd have problems, right? So that is an extra step, but you could make it required in here. So I'll go unlock this card. I didn't make it required in SharePoint, but I can make it required in here. And now notice, see, it's got an asterisk. So they will have to fill this out before the form can be submitted. It would give them an error if they didn't. So that's the required property. And then, so again, I have to select the card, and these properties that I've been talking about today are visible. And so like if I change visible to false, my whole card disappeared. So notice I still have the priority card selected, but it's totally gone. It's not on the form anymore. So I could go, the only way to select it again is to go over here to where the card is. So that's hiding and showing that. And then, yes, there's a way to refresh the data connection. You go to View, Data Sources, and you find your connection and refresh it there. Okay, and then, okay, so here, maybe I want to do something based on priority. So if something has a priority of high, I want the sponsor field to show. So I've got my priority. I want to give this a better name though, because this data card value 2, that's the drop down box that I want to do this logic based on, but I want to give it a better name. So I'm going to call it DRP pick priority. Now you could spend, hours of your life going through here renaming every single one of these things. I usually just, if I need to use something in a formula, that's kind of what prompts me to rename stuff. Okay, so then yeah, Nicholas, when you refresh the data connection, it doesn't change the required property on the card, at least not last time I checked. So you'd have to know because that's one of the big things that I've seen people get caught up on when they're customizing forms, is that it doesn't automatically refresh that. Because like in InfoPath, when you made changes to the form and then you open it up in InfoPath, you customize it in InfoPath, it would say, hey, changes have been made to this list. You want to refresh, you want to update your InfoPath form to reflect those changes, and you'd be prompted and you could click yes, and that's how that would be refreshed. But this one's not going to know that. Now I can test that. So that's the fun of Power Hour, is we can just try stuff out on the fly. So let me put this back to, now I'm going to put it back to false. I'm also, so when I unlocked my card, now it's permanently unlocked. But if I unlock a card and I kind of want to reset it back and I want it to be locked again, I can just add it back. So I can just go here and I go add field and I can just go add priority. So now I've added priority back and I can drag it back up here. So now I will save this. I don't know if I want to spend that much time testing this, but I'll go ahead and save this. Maybe at the end, if I have time, I'll test that and see if it updates it. Oh, come on, PowerApps. Saving. Okay. Nicholas says, click the title card and see what value for required is. Oh, well, that's going to be true. Yeah. It was true when I added the form control. So the question is, does it change later dynamically? We'll go test that in a little bit. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is make sponsor show when I, first of all, I'll make sponsor read only based on some logic. And then I'll make it show and hide. So I'm going to, first of all, for sponsor, I need to change the display mode, and that's grayed out. So when it's grayed out, I can go unlock my card. If I unlock a card and I screw it up and I break it, I can just delete the whole card and re-add it back. So I didn't permanently break my form. So I've got my sponsor card, and I'm going to say if the priority is low, then I want sponsor to be read-only. So I'll go to, I'll go ahead and unlock, let's see, can I just rename this without, yeah, there we go. Rename DRP pick priority. And then the actual priorities are high, normal, low. Does that have a space? Let me see. I can't tell if that's a space. I guess we'll see very soon. All right, so my display mode, I don't want it to inherit from the parent, which it's an editable form obviously right now. So I don't want it to be that. I want it to be if And then we expand this out. If the DRP pick priority dot selected dot select, now selected items is going to be for multiple items. Dot selected is just for one thing. Dot value equals, equals 3 low. Then I want my display mode to be view, display mode dot view. Otherwise, display mode dot edit. And I can click format text and it kind of splits it out like that. Now let's try it out. Yeah, it's, maybe it's got a space in there. See, because it didn't change it to it's very particular. Oh yeah, there we go. So it's high and this is editable, and then when I change it to low, this is just a read only. And then I can say if I want it low, I don't want it read only, I want it disabled. So then I could say if the value is low, I want my display mode to be disabled. So you can see the difference in what it would look like. Low. See, now it's clearly grayed out and it visually looks different. Okay, and then the cool thing about disabled is that I can actually change the disabled properties of stuff. So I can go to my little properties over here and go disabled. And I only have all these disabled colors. So maybe I want my disabled fill to be black. So then when it's black, when it's disabled, it's black or blue, something like that. So you can specifically you can't do this for read only, but for the disabled property, you can actually make it so that it's a completely different color if it's disabled. That's a people picker. Let me see. There we go. And then visible, we'll do the third one, which is, so we just did display mode, and I showed you where the required property is. All these work the same. It's just, you're just using an if statement just in the right property. So I will do the visible property. So if the priorities, I'll get rid of this display mode thing. I'll just say display mode edit. And then if priority is high, I want sponsor to, if priority is not high, I want sponsor to disappear. So I go to sponsor card, I go to visible, and so prior DRP select, pick priority dot selected, the value of whatever they select is not equal to high. Okay, so look, I didn't do an if statement because it just whatever statement I put in here, it just has to resolve to true or false. So I could say if DRP pre-priority dot select dot value is not equal to high, true, otherwise false. But this statement that I'm typing just evaluates to true or false. So when I did it backwards though, see? So I will do, let me go fix that. So how do I go? We can just make it appear again. Equals high. If it's equal to high, I want it to show. High, normal. Okay. So now, any questions so far? Just let me know. But I'm going to do something that's a common thing in forums where you say, if they select this, then this just description appears next to it. So I'm going to kind of arrange my form and make it so I select these little boxes and make it look kind of like this concept. So this concept is one we did for a customer where each time you select a box, the box for you to type more about that thing appears underneath it. So I just did a screenshot of that. Okay. So that is going to be, I'm just going to kind of spend some time rearranging stuff. Let me go to my form control. And I'm going to not edit the fields, but I have to select the whole form control because I'm going to start rearranging the cards on here. And I want that other card to show. So I'm going to get rid of that logic that I just did first. Visible true. There. Okay, got my whole form. And I'm going to say snap to columns just one, and then I'm going to turn snap to columns off. And then I'm going to start rearranging. Oh, look at what I just did. I hate it when it does that. Have y'all seen it do this before where you start rearranging, you start trying to drag stuff and it just, the whole card disappears? That's fun. Let me just put two. I've fixed it before. I don't remember. I've only had this happen a handful of times. Let me select my form again. Have y'all seen this happen? This is such a pain. Snap to columns on columns 2. Let's see, it disappeared again. Width. See, that is wonky right there. Width 5. Yeah, see, isn't that funny? It just keeps changing my width to like it. See, it's not evaluating it as a number. Isn't that funny? Oh, I'm trying to remember what I did different to get around it last time this happened to me. Yeah, such a pain. Undo, undo. There we go. Sponsor, related products. Let me take off the snap to columns again. Did I take it off? Yeah, okay. Snap to columns is turned off again. Yeah, it is. It's easier to type the size in the sidebar. Let me just get down to where I want to be with this thing. So I want these 3 to be, so this width is going to be parent divided by 3. So this is one way to do kind of responsive. So I put parent width divided by 3 for this sponsor card, and I'll do the same thing. Parent width divided by 3, and then same thing with this one. And then notice it's still down here, and so you can actually control what line it ends up on with these numbers too. Let me see if it just lets me drag it. There, that's easier. Okay. Now, if they choose obtain a budget approval, I want it to show this little extra text next to it. Oh, look, it disappeared again. And then board policy update, that description goes next to this one. And then customer agreement goes after that one. And look how wonky it's getting. Yeah, this is one of those things like it used to happen in InfoPath 2 where the whole thing would just get all out of whack. And then you spend hours trying to fix it. Okay, let's get these lined up. Coolly. So I could fix this by just doing snap to columns real quick and just kind of reset it, you know. they're all next to where they need to be now. Now this one, I'm going to put, I'm going to make these appear only if they select that one next to it. So I'm going to say, what is the width? What is this one? This is board policy update data card 1. Maybe if I just make this one have the same width as that other one. Width is dot width. Board. Oh, it hates me trying to do this. There. So now I just made this card have the same width as this other one so that they'll all just have the same width. So let me go just copy that. See, I'm just referencing the other property. So now they have a uniform width. And then I could do the same thing. Look at that. Awesome. I could do the same thing with these. First of all, we'll do the logic to hide and show these boxes. And then, see, I'm going to taunt it. Oh, no. Every time I try and drag it, it shrinks down. What if I change that little width fit thing to true? Oh, there we go. Width fit is true. Nice. It won't let me select 2 at a time, though. So that will make it stretch out to the end. And then just a real quick, a little trick that I use to kind of put some segmentation in here is by putting a rectangle in it. So in order to do that, though, I have to unlock. So I'll unlock this one, and I'll go insert a rectangle. And I'm going to put the rectangle at the very top. So its X and Y are going to be 0. And its width is going to be the parent width. So it fills up the whole width, and then its height is just going to be like 3. So it's just a tiny little line going across the top. So see, now I have this little rectangle, and I can even call it like rect divider. And then I take this rectangle and I copy it. And then I have to go unlock this card and paste it in there. And then, of course, it puts it in some weird place. So I can make this reference that other one, though. So I can say I want its X and Y to equal that first one. Now, from now on, when I take this rectangle and I copy it and I paste it to another one, then it will unlock and paste. Then now it's staying at the top. So unlock, paste. So you see the pattern here, unlock, paste, stop. Okay. And so you get the drift. But there isn't just an easy way to apply that to all of them, at least not yet. So is that, y'all like that? Is that like a nice little way to put kind of dividers in your forms? Let me know what you think about that. Or is that, oh, y'all already knew that. Okay, so that kind of makes it look, yeah?
We just had a question. It actually popped up in our chat, our sales chat. I just figured you'd answer in case they're watching. What is the purpose of cards specifically? Is it similar to data fields in SharePoint list?
Yes, the cards equal data fields. That was one of the first slides, is each card represents a data field. Okay, so this, was there something else? Width is, I could have sworn I changed this to parent width, divided, parent width, I'll just put parent width divided by 3 there. And then this one's got to have width fit. That one, see it, one just got out of whack. Okay, so then we got to put the rule on this one based on whether this is true or false, right? So that's going to be that visible property. So visible is going to be based on this little toggle switch. So this is data card value 6. It would help if it's got a better name. Budget. Let's see. Toggle TGL budget. So this whole card, TGL budget equals true. Let's see. No, it's not going to be just true like that. Dot value equals, since it's a Boolean, that's why I'm using true. So this is a Boolean field in SharePoint, and that's why the value of it is basically going to be true or false. So let's go see. So now when I change this to yes, then the box appears. All right, so then we got this one. Then it's kind of tedious. So then you got to go through all of them. So I'm going to call this board, because then this other one has to be based on this box. So the visibility property, visible of this other box is going to be board dot value equals true. Okay, and then going down now, but notice the problem with that is that then the whole, see, then the whole thing disappears. So there are a couple things you can see, and the line disappears and everything. So there are a couple things you can do to get around that. So we can make the little box show up underneath this. We can make it show in a different place, or we could just put the visibility stuff on these individual controls in here, like these little, this little label and this little text box. So those are, you know, those are kind of our options. So let's see in this other one. Let's see, let me look really quick. Yeah, the visible property, it's, yeah, we put them right under other. And so you actually don't, let me see, you actually don't even need to put the equals. Let me try one more thing. You don't even need to put the equals true, because it just has to evaluate to true. See? Yeah, so I didn't even so I can make it even shorter. So I just take out the equals true. Does that make sense? So this formula in here, whatever it is, just has to equal true for that, for the in the visible property. Okay, let's see. Now I'll go ahead and go and kind of show a few different things that you can do with this same concept. So if they select obtain budget approval, and not only do I want this appear, but I want it to be required. So I've got my visible property here, but let me do my required. So I have to unlock this. Anytime you see one of these is grayed out, you have to unlock it. So then I'll make this required. I wonder if I can just make it equal the visible property. Ooh, that is fancy. Okay, so the visible property is equal to true. And I already did that formula in the visible property here. See? All I did was I went to the required property of the exact same control, and I just made it equal whatever the visible property is. That way, when it's visible, it's also required. So I didn't have to put that same formula. Of course, I'm not saving a ton of time, but just to kind of show you the logic. So I didn't have to put that same formula, this, in the visible property and the required property. I'm just pointing the required property equal whatever's in the visible property. Does that make sense? So, oh yeah, that's a good idea, Ariel. So let's do Ariel's idea for the next one. So this one, instead of doing visible, I'll just leave the visible as true, but I'll do the display mode. So the display mode is going to be if this thing equals true. So if BRD, what did I call it? TGL board dot value equals true, then I want it to be display mode dot edit. Otherwise, display mode dot disabled. Okay, now let's look at that. Ooh, look, so I turned it off and the whole thing grayed out. Nice. But then to save some space, you might want to, you know, put it underneath there or something. So I could take this card and put it, I think on that example that I showed you, see, look how many questions we had in this form. So this is a form at a snapshot program. So look how many fields we had. So every single one of these has a little comments thing under it. So there's the comments field will pop out underneath it each time you select one. So when you have a ton of fields like that, you might not want to have the whole thing showing all the time and just taking up real estate on the page. You could also make it light up too. So let me try to do this 2-column thing real quick. See if I can do that real quick. But also make it so like the whole thing lights up if you select yes. So let me show you that. So this will be fill. And I'll say if TGL board dot value equals true, then yellow. Otherwise, otherwise nothing. Just otherwise clear. Oops, I put dots instead of commas. So then it lights up and turns yellow, so it's very obvious that they need to fill it out. So I'll do some more rearranging. We got a few more. Y'all understand some of these concepts? The main logic concepts that you use in that you're going to be using just in your form logic are going to be the mode, showing and hiding and making things read only, the visible property, and the required property. Una says we'll be able to do all these on document libraries. You can. So in your list of your data connections, you can pull in a document library as a data connection. You don't have an interface in a document library to get to PowerApps. So if you wanted to do that, you'd have to just put a gallery in your Power App of all the documents and a little launch command on each one that will actually open that document. And you can customize the form that goes with each document and have them, click a button to edit the properties and all that. For document library, you'd have to have them only going to the app to do all that, because you just there isn't a built-in way yet in a library. And I'll just go double check because you never know. There's not a built-in way in a library to have, to just open it up in a Power App. Come on. Because when you select something and you're editing the properties, you just have the generic properties. So since there isn't a link in libraries that somehow opens up a customized form for Power Apps from the library, that's why you'd have to do that some other way, like have a completely different interface, or do something like have and April Dunham wrote a great blog post on this, have a custom, remember in Power Hour we talked about customizing these columns? April Dunham wrote a great post about how to create a customized column that is a hyperlink to a Power App. So that way when someone goes to click like edit properties or something, it actually takes them to a Power App. And that is it. And I wrote a blog post called Standalone versus Customized List Forms about Power Apps. And I added a link to her blog post in there if you don't want to go grab that. Here, okay, let's go back to this form, and I've got a couple more minutes. I don't know, it's so time consuming to do these. I don't think I really have time to just start dragging these around and reconfiguring these, but yeah, that would take a while because I'd have to put this up here and have this line up with that. Let me snap it back to snap those columns. Okay, so obtain budget approval. I want that to be down there. Yeah, see, when you snap to columns, you can't, it doesn't let you just have, maybe I can make that wider. No, it doesn't let me do that either. Yeah, you're pretty limited once you snap the columns. But then you can easily like just completely screw it up when you unsnap them and do like that. Obtain budget approval, board policy update. So this could be like parent width divided by 2. Now, once you do these parent width things, you really are not going to want to start dragging around and rearranging stuff anymore because you'll lose this property. So as soon as I go try and drag this field or drag its width anywhere, it's just going to go back to being a number here. It's not going to say parent width divided by 2 anymore. So let's see. Copy. Oh, I'll put that as the height. Then I could put these next to each other, and then I can have basically all of these have that same width. Golly, that is a mess. Yeah. So like you can tell, it's going to take a while to arrange everything just right. But I did show you how you can make things appear and disappear. So notice this is its own entire row in here. And when I change this to yes, when I change it back to no, the whole row disappears. So you could see it'd be a good way to save on real estate by having that comments thing just be its own, the card is its own row and it just goes away when I change it to no. So that way, only the things that they click yes next to are going to be appearing with boxes down the page. Oh, Joelle, we got a few more requests to join. Okay, let's see. We got like 1 minute left. And don't forget that we do have our PowerApps Advanced class is out there. We have the next live one is going to be in June, but we actually have the content out there. I've got one more like 6-minute video I'm going to post out there. And then I'm going to send out the email letting everybody know that the Flow whole class is out there. So it's the Flow Advanced class, and we have just finished putting all the content on the site. All right, thanks everybody for coming. And we're not having Power Hour next week. I'm actually going to be, there's that SharePoint TV thing. I put a link to that in the newsletter. That is going to be, they're going to be interviewing people during the SharePoint conference. SharePoint TV is not sessions. It's sort of like a live, like a show that broadcasts kind of interviewing the speakers and that kind of thing. And I also gave you all a link to where we're going to be broadcasting live. That is IW Mentor. No, it's not that one. It's SPC. So this is the page where we're going to be broadcasting live the keynote. I'll put that in the chat in there. And yeah, let's see. Let me switch back. That's about it. That was a fun whirlwind, right? Did I miss anything? Let's see. Oh yeah, no, thanks everybody for coming.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nicholas, for the tidbit there. Awesome. Good to know. You wouldn't think you'd have to go out of the way to put that in there. You would think it would be built in, but yeah. It's like, was it worth all the work to go put that, set that field that way? All right. Thanks, Joelle. And if you're going to SPC next week, we've got a little channel here in Slack in the SPC 19 channel. I'll put a link to it in here. And if you're there, and make sure you have the Slack mobile app on your phone so that we can coordinate stuff in that little SPC 19 channel. And I will see you all in Vegas, and we'll see you all next time. Have a good week. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Woohoo, babies.